when looking at losing body fat, if the goal is to maintain a consistent, the goal should be to maintain a consistent caloric deficit.
Yep.
That's the goal, right? Like there's a lot of other things that are inside of it, but that's like the main goal or outcome within losing body fat. So when we talk about, maintaining a caloric deficit, the first thing that we have to look at, or the first thing we can look at is, let's make it easy and talk about exercise first, and then we'll get into all the things outside of exercise. The person should be consistently moving in exercise.
Yep.
So that could be in resistance, that could be in aerobic work, whatever that is. So that would be that first outcome that comes to mind is you just need to move your body.
Yeah. If someone is doing no activity at all or is highly inactive, that's a whole lot of energy that is not being expended. And when we're thinking about having someone in a caloric deficit, you can totally have someone sit at a chair all day and just pull calories really low. But number one, is that what we do as fitness coaches and like what we think is healthy? No, we think that there are a lot of outcomes from exercise that are not just fat loss. So there are other reasons to move as well. But secondarily, I think it feels better to do some activity and then pull back calories, not to such a drastic extent as you would have to if someone is just laying in in their bed all day and trying to lose fat doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And the behavior that, a coach needs to help a client, get to or determine as it relates to exercise, they need to help them build a type of fitness or a fitness program and a schedule that allows consistency. I think that's it, right? It's like that's the behavior that needs to be worked on between the coach and the client. What days are we going to do this exercise and what are we going to do inside of this exercise? And those two considerations are going to lead to, are we going to be able to do this consistently over a long period of time? Because I think the main point in the caloric deficit piece is you want to maintain it over a long period of time, right? Like you don't want to do it, like you're saying, so drastically where it's like, we're at a 600 calorie per day deficit and we're going to do that. Let me get even more, polar. We're going to go 1,000 calorie per day deficit because we want to lose 5 pounds in 3 weeks, right? It's like, that's a little bit aggressive, right? So the goal shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be super aggressive. It should be, what can we do over a longer period of time? So when I say longer with fat loss, I'm thinking like 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be in caloric deficits for months and months and months and months without having some kind of break to let your body come back to normal.
Yeah. I also think on the other flip side of exercise, if you're doing it in a way that is so intense and so challenging that you're not going to be able to extend that out for 8 to 12 weeks and, realistically the exercise piece forever, that's going to be problematic too. Because I look at, back at my old gym, there was a boot camp, a VIP boot camp that was like just down the street from where we were, and they sold this. It was like 60 or 90 days transformation package where I think you paid like $500 up front, and essentially if you lost a certain amount of weight, your goal weight, you got your money back. And the exercise practices that they were having these people do were not sustainable at all. And it was like this essentially, how much weight can we lose in this short period of a time approach, where the more exercise.
Hold on. I can't wrap my head around this business model. So
it's crazy. Well, no one loses the weight.
Okay. So, okay. Hold on. VIP boot camp is saying that if you reach your goals, you will pay nothing.
Exactly. And then I think they had the option to like roll the $500 into like ongoing membership if people wanted to. But here's the problem is it's such an intense approach, and it's such like losing 20 pounds in 60 days. That's fucking aggressive. People are so burnt out by the end of the 60 days.
Unless you're 800 pounds.
Well, this is true. This is true. But that's not the demographic they were talking to. They were talking to, middle-class mums who had a little bit of extra weight that they needed to lose and thought that punishing themselves through exercise was the right approach to do so. But we actually got a lot of those people coming over to us after, because they'd like kind of check out what they were doing as they were running past looking miserable. We called it, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole, but they look like zombies. These people looked really, really just so sad and like zombies running and walking laps around the building, trying to lose their weight to get the money back.
Yeah, it's that Biggest Loser story, right? Is that show still on?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you see that. It's the same thing, right? It's like you attack this thing so aggressively where there's your body actually cannot sustain it, and your body's in that mode where it's like, I need to get to a point where I can preserve myself because I'm dying. So, some of those people would lose just crazy amounts of weight. Like some of them would lose 50, 60, 100, 150 pounds in weeks, like 8 weeks. And then they'd, get sent off on their own. And it's like, okay, now figure it out. And their bodies are like in this preservation mode. And they're so used to eating this amount of calories and exercising this much. And obviously these people can't sustain that on their own, especially. And they go over calorically and they go under exercise wise, and their body's like, okay, and then just puts on all that weight right back on. So I think that's probably the story that places like that would see when they approach it with that non-sustainable approach, where it's just like your body is a really intelligent thing, and it's going to do what it has to do to survive.
Yeah. So sustainability, that's
And
really the
exercise.
piece
Yeah,
in
yeah.
exercise.
hmm
So what else? What other behaviors are
Okay,
important?
so that one was consistent exercise, and then
Yes.
the other one inside of maintain a consistent caloric deficit would be increase non-exercise movement.
Yep.
So ideas would be walks, MAP 10, outdoor recovery, standing and sitting at a 1-to-1 ratio instead of sitting all day. And I say 1-to-1 because it's just as bad to stand up all day as it is to sit down all day for a lot of people. A
Yeah.
lot of people complain of issues with that. So not biasing the standing over the sitting.
For sure. And I mean, this like neat piece is so location dependent and culture dependent. And that's something I've really come to observe with people living in, like growing up in Sydney, where public transport and walking around and like being outdoors and walking from your house up to the local shops is the norm. I look at my parents and they actually do quite a lot of neat. And that's like their saving grace, right? That they are able to get outside, that walking is a part of culture. Going on a bushwalk, going for a swim, that's just like stuff that people do. They get out, they garden, they work in the city. So they're like walking around the city from the train station. They get that movement. And then I went to live in Detroit, and in Detroit, no one walks and everyone drives from A to B. And it's so cold part of the year that you wouldn't even want to walk down to your mailbox, let alone, go on a walk around the block for 15 minutes. So as a coach, you start to think neat has to look different for different people, depending on where they are. And let's think about, middle of the winter in Michigan. You're not getting someone outside to take a walk in minus 15 with 2 feet of snow. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
So how in that environment can we help people put neat into their life?
Yeah, I think it's easy just to say that, right? I think it's easy to say that. I've spent a lot of years in a few different really cold places. There's really no excuse unless it's in the middle of a blizzard and it's like, hey, I can't get out. But that's not day to day for most people, depending on where those people live. Even when we lived in Alaska, right? Like we still got out and moved quite frequently in the wintertime. So I don't really buy that that's an excuse for people, because there's things that people can do outside when it's cold, when there's like we have protective equipment that we can put on to protect ourselves and stuff like that. So I think we just have to do a little bit of research as a coach as to where that person lives and what they have available around them. If someone's absolutely not willing to go outside in the winter, it's like, hey, maybe you should move, right? Because it's just not healthy as a human being to sit inside of your house for 6 months every year. It's like, maybe you shouldn't live in that place if you can't go outside and enjoy the outdoors. That's what I did. If that's not the case, if they don't have the ability to move, of course, obviously that's extremely radical. Then just figure out other ways to move, right? It's like you can be indoors and still move your body. It's not always, steps, and that's like the guiding light. It's like, got to get 8,000 steps every single day, and if we don't, it's a failure. That's not always the thing. But I think as a coach, you just have to do some research and look at what people have around them.
Yeah, definitely. And if for whatever reason someone's not able to get outside for a regular walk or not willing to, maybe the conversation is let's get you a treadmill or a bike that you can have at home and you can spin in front of the TV while you wind down at night.
Yeah, yeah.
So just finding other strategies for that.
Yeah, I think optimally it is getting people outside though, figuring out a way to get people
Yeah.
outside.